Good evening. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting for Tuesday, February 25th, 2014. This meeting is being recorded. Before we start our meeting, we'd like to take a moment of appreciation for our brave servicemen and women that are serving in Afghanistan. Thank you. We have an abbreviated meeting tonight for our third meeting of the month. We've got our Veterans Agent, Ron Griffin, is here to chat with us at 7 o'clock, and at 7:15 we have some folks that are coming in for our plastic bag study committee members to get them started. And then we just have one action item for us to vote on, and then some budget reviews that we'll go over with Michael. So I guess without further ado, Ron, I guess we're ready to start with you.
Good evening. So I thought I would start with my budget for the next year. And my budget is pretty much flat except for one line item. And that one line item is for veterans benefits. And that is going, I'm projecting that I'll have enough budget for this year. But as the number of veterans come forward who are deserving of benefits, I'd have to increase the budget so that we wouldn't have to do a last minute adjustment for next year. So it's not that the expenses have gone up, it's just the numbers are going up.
Sure.
You know, the number of veterans that will be receiving this. And this is for veterans and for spouses. So this is what's very different about this benefit versus all the rest, because normally they don't include the spouses.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of widows and widows that are really making this program. It's really helping and making a big difference in their lives.
Oh, excellent.
What's the total number of caseload now? I should have asked you before.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
And how do people get on this list? Is it, other than service, is there an income qualification?
Oh, this is an income-based qualification, yes.
Yep.
So generally, it's a 200% of the poverty level is the income requirement, and their assets pretty much have to be depleted 3,200 if they're single, and for married folks, it's 7,200. So that, you know, pretty much have to have depleted all their income before they're eligible.
For any type of assistance, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the assistance is mostly in the form of helping them out with medical payments.
Okay.
So it's not, you know, they're not buying cigarettes with it, they're paying medical bills with it.
Okay, all right, that's good.
And then the town gets 75% of it back from the state.
And the town does get 75% of this line item comes back to the town. That's correct. It takes about a year for us to get it back, but I watch with that and with Joy.
Yeah.
I give her when I calculate what the monthly benefit is, I calculate when the next quarter when it will be reimbursed, and she can watch out for that. Right.
Yeah, a running total there.
But it is about 1 year later.
Okay.
Is that the money that comes through on the cherry sheet that's listed?
It's on one of the sheets, but it's not embedded in the cherry sheet. It's a separate line item, so we can look at it, and I can look at it and I can say, okay, these were for expenses or that we submitted really a year ago in the quarter.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
They sent quarterly, not monthly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
And the budget for the flags and it remains flat at 2,000. I've been able to, manage.
Yeah.
I've been able to manage. This is where the money comes from for the flags, all around Baxter Park, and the town flags are included in that, and we do all the flags at the cemetery. So there's about 1,000, a little over 1,000 flags that were put up, and it also includes all the flag holders that hold those flags.
Yep.
And Memo does flags along
So along the street.
the street.
Along Main Street, that's correct.
I saw an interesting piece on the news last week about flags and the fact that a lot of them were not made in America. And the Defense Department has now mandated that they will only buy flags that are made in America.
Right. I can assure you that I only buy flags that are made in America.
Good.
It is a question, and I use the same supplier that Marshall Chick used before me, and probably, I don't know who he, probably from the Veteran Service Officer before him, which was Jerry Doucette. Once you find a good supplier, you stay with them.
Yeah, yeah. Excellent.
Ron, the Memorial Day budget, you're going to include the funds for the Veterans Day breakfast in that?
Yes, we, with Chief Mann, we're going to have, we did the Veterans Day breakfast this year, which you all attended, and I think it went off very well.
Really nice.
That was
Nicely
funded through the American Legion. However, we'd like to keep it going every year. The cost with all the volunteers that we had was minimal, $300.
Right.
So with Chief Mann, what we're going to do is change the Memorial Day Fund to the Memorial Day Fund and the Veteran Breakfast Fund.
Okay.
And we'll hopefully continue that for now on. We had a good turnout.
Very good.
Congressman Kennedy came, as you remember, and that was very
Very nice.
exciting.
Yeah.
And of course, James Timothy comes, and always Denise Garlick comes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just, and always you guys come too.
And there were like 10 tables, so it was probably about 180, 100 people.
We did a head count about 80.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is very good.
Yeah, we're excited, and
Oh,
for the first time, and the word got out.
Yeah.
We had a group that served the veterans, was the Warriors for Warriors. It's a high school
That's
club.
right. That's
Oh,
right.
You know,
right,
and that
yeah.
was just great. It helped to smooth the breakfast along because we didn't have elderly veterans walking around trying to balance their coffee and their with a cane or their walker, and
Yeah.
so they sat down and got served, and of course, being served by young people, they're just thrilled.
Yeah.
And the young people were thrilled too. They were just thrilled.
It's a nice event.
Just gives them a nice chance to be appreciated with that. I just thought that was an excellent time. Is the Memorial Day / Veterans budget, that's a separate?
That's a separate budget, yeah.
Veteran Aid, right.
Correct.
One thing, I think when you completed your budget review and you're going through these, I think you ought to take a look at the Veterans Service Officer salary. A couple of years ago, we brought it up somewhat. I think it gave a $2,000 increase over and above the general salary increase. And I think we have to start looking at that as eventually it becoming a full-time position as mandated by the state law.
Mhm.
So, but I think if you get to it gradually, it's probably the best way to go.
That'd be good. Yes, if you
You
have
said
some
that's the
recommendations.
law now, correct?
It's been the law for quite some time, since I think the 70s. It's just that our population didn't go over 12,000, and we weren't subject to it. So there was two things: you go over 12,000, and you have a new veteran service officer, because the one that's incumbent was grandfathered in.
Yeah.
So it finally happened about the time I came up.
Yeah, well, we can consider you to be grandfathered. But that'd be good. I don't know if you Michael wanted to, or make a recommendation at some point.
Yeah,
look at
we could
things.
correct,
Try
yeah.
to get it in maybe this year or something. I know
Okay.
you had talked about that. That would be good. That would be very good.
My sense is that we're underpaying Ron for all that he's doing.
Oh, I agree. He does a tremendous job. He's really taking the bull by the horns and
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's more a labor of love, and we thank you for it.
Thank you. So there was a couple other things. I have 3 articles in the town warrant.
Yep.
And I didn't know if you had any questions on those articles, but basically they are not new items. What
Right.
they are is a review of some of the benefits for veterans.
Mhm.
Some of those are like the Veterans Work-Off Program last year. The town has to vote to adopt it.
Right.
And we can't find any records for those 3 articles that the town adopted the state law. So one of them had to do with residency,
Yeah.
5 years, it's there, unless the town says to honor a 1-year residency. And So we don't really see any changes because we've really been implementing the tax abatements and the excise tax,
Yep.
not abatements,
Exemptions.
exemptions. So we've really been implementing those as though we had, but when we went back through the records, they couldn't find them. So this is just cleaning up what we already do.
That's fine, yeah.
Now, were they all on property taxes, or was one of them on motor vehicle excise?
Yes, 14 is on excise tax, motor vehicle
Motor vehicle
excise tax.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was really to include the National Guard members. You know, at one time, we didn't activate the National Guard as much as we do now.
Now it's-
And now they're doing a lot of active duty, but the law didn't include them, so they added a paragraph to
Okay,
include
yeah.
them. Also, there was Article 13, which is, again, for the excise tax on a motor vehicle. And again, it goes to
Is that the disabled veterans or injured in,
it is, and it.
and there's one for the ones that
I
have been
thought
called
this
up?
one had to do with the 5 years.
Residency?
One goes to one, right? Goes from 5 to 1. Isn't it? Yeah.
Well, what, I think what it is now, it's, if you didn't enlist from Medfield,
Yeah.
you had to have residency for 5 years before you eligible for the abatement,
Yeah.
or excuse me, exemption. We're both getting that.
Right.
Abatement on the brain. But this would reduce the residency requirement from 5 years to 1 year if you didn't enlist from Medfield. So somebody enlisted from Walpole
Yeah.
when they were in high school, but is now living in Medfield,
Yeah.
or moved to Medfield, they
Right.
wouldn't have to wait 5 years to be
That
eligible.
makes sense,
So-
obviously.
So this has to do really with someone who is outside the territorial country for 45 days, then that year they're exempt from paying the excise tax. So it's only for the year that they're out, so it's
Yep.
not a permanent thing.
No?
And then the last one is for Article 11, is to change the year residency requirement from 5 years to 1 year. And
Yeah.
it's always been there, we've always used the 1 year, but
just
we
wanna
can't
add it.
find record that we accepted it.
Yep. Good.
I think Ron had asked whether the selectmen want him to go forward with the Veterans Tax Work-Off Program. It was kind of in abeyance because the assessors and the treasurer collector weren't sure what they were going to do on the, whether they were going to treat it as a write-off against the overlay account or whether they were going to issue payroll checks. And they've finally decided after reviewing it with other towns that for now, until they're giving instructions otherwise, they're going to handle it as a write-off against the overlay account.
Give out, yeah.
So I think Ron wanted to know whether, on that basis, now that that's been settled, at least temporarily, whether you want him to proceed with
Right.
the
Yeah,
Yes, I would like your
Implementation.
permission to launch and administer.
that's great.
And,
Absolutely.
you know, because I have to give them up to 63 hours they have to work off. We have to give them the time to do that before
Sure.
November 1st. And if I don't act soon, they won't have enough time to work off the tax. So
no.
I'm going with, you know, implementing it on May 1st,
Yep.
so I can inform the veterans, put some ads in the paper, you know, and tell them where to get the applications.
Great.
We have 4 positions, and each is for a $500
Good.
exemption.
Will you handle that yourself? I think for the senior tax work-off, they have a committee that handles because they have, 65 slots, I think, or 60
do, yeah.
slots. I don't know with 4, are you intending to handle that yourself, or are you going to have,
I did intend to handle it myself.
okay.
And this was $500, correct?
$500 for 4 people,
Good.
4 veterans.
Excellent.
And I'm working with the school department. They'll hopefully be able to volunteer through the school department.
Excellent.
So I think there's a application in your packet along with the outline, which we've gone through a number of times, and they're fine down with it at the Board of Assessors. They're fine with it at the senior center, Susan. And everybody, we've been wordsmithing it all along, and it keeps changing, but we've got the last corrections, I think, in there. And we gotta go forward to find out if we have, what other issues we have. We can't launch it without some glitch, right?
I think it looks good.
No, that's great.
I was interested to see that it looks from your form that people can designate someone else to do the work for them.
Correct. It could be that the veteran can't do the work, so he can dedicate someone to perform the work for him.
Yep.
Excellent. Good.
Thanks for doing all that.
Right.
Well, thank you for the town. This was something that was in Article 31, or I think last year, and that the town voted to accept that. And we're one of the first towns in the state to do that, maybe around the 15th or 20th of towns. And but I think it's still new. Everybody's seeing how everybody else implements it.
Yeah. Good. All right. Well, I think we're all set. You're all set with everything?
I'm all
Okay,
set
good.
with everything.
Excellent. Thanks for coming.
All right,
coming.
thank you for
Appreciate it.
having me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
Next on the agenda is the proposed plastic bag study committee, and I guess, Richard, I'll turn it over to you. That'd be great.
What I did, I have the certificates of appointment, and what each member's gonna have to do is just see the town clerk at some point to get officially sworn in with that. I jotted down, and I did one, two,
Thank you.
what I thought we needed to do is, what is the charge, what is the goal of the committee going to be? And it's kind of up in the air. This came about, there was an article in the paper, the towns of Brookline, Lexington, and I believe there was another one, that actually enacted a ban on plastic bags. And I received a lot of feedback, and I think part of the feedback was, is there a way we can do something perhaps voluntary before we do an actual outright ban? And so I think the rest of the board looked and said, maybe we need to just kind of investigate this a little bit. So I jotted down 6 things. These are just my own ideas that perhaps the committee would look at. And I have, number 1, investigate the impact of plastic bags on Medfield's environment and on the environment in general, to establish, what is the issue with plastic bags. The second thing I have is to develop ideas on how school-age students can be educated about the impact of plastic bags on the Medfield environment. So the education aspect. The third is to research ways Medfield can best address the impact of plastic bags on our environment. If there's concern, what is it that we can do in Medfield to answer these concerns? Number 4 was to contact Shaw's, Roach Brothers, which will be coming in with the new Brothers Marketplace, CVS, and other businesses who use plastic bags in bulk, and explore their ideas on voluntary ways to reduce plastic bag usage. So to contact the users of the plastic bags and see how we can work together, private and town together. Number 5 is to explore ways to educate town citizens as to the impact of plastic bags on our environment. And the 6th, which Nancy Irwin, I think, helped me with on that, was explore ways that the swap at the transfer station or other locations might be used to act as centers for plastic bag collection. So, Mr. Chairman, those are just some ideas I had.
Yeah, that's great.
Get them underway. I don't know if you or Pete or if the committee to be has additional thoughts of where we should go with this.
I think that's great. That's really what I was thinking about as far as what I thought would be a great way to get them started and the committee started. So think those are terrific ideas. I don't know what you thought.
They sound very good to me, Richard. Thank you for doing that. And I would just sort of encourage the committee, if they, as they look into it, if they come up with ideas on things that they think are important that we haven't asked them about, that they should obviously let us know and not feel totally constrained by our list.
We have a couple of people who had called that because of other engagements are not here this evening, but I'll just read, and if you want to come up, I'll give you the certificate. The other thing, Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
I just was suggesting that perhaps just to get them underway, we appoint just a temporary chair that can call the first meeting. My suggestion, only because she was the first one to call me, would be to suggest Sue Buckley, just to get it, the very first meeting organized, and then you guys can determine for yourselves when you want to meet and who the chair, if you wouldn't mind. That's what you get for being first. So the first is Sue Buckley. We have Nancy Irwin.
Thank you. And Nancy?
Eve Potts is very enthusiastic on this. She actually is up Vermont skiing. Give that to her. Emily Monak. Emily, I think, is has a track banquet. Dan Rule. We have a nice response of
Thanks, Dan.
students from Medfield High School
Very nice.
that are in the environmental science class. That's correct. Are you all seniors? They are all seniors. The only aspect of that, I think Mike Sullivan brought that up, when you guys graduate in May with the committee, to see if we can then tap into next year's, I believe they would already have their course selection sheets done, so maybe we can tap into next year's seniors and make a nice transition going from you guys to the new, and maybe a meeting or two, we can meet both of you together and kind of make a smooth change in that. Zoe,
Maybe that should be number 7 on the list of tasks, that they recruit the next year's class.
Yeah.
Zoe Ansberger?
Thank you.
So, I'm sorry. Thanks. David Stevenson? Thanks, David. Caroline Melville? Thanks, Caroline. And Sienna Fitzpatrick?
Yeah.
Thanks, Sienna.
Okay. Excellent.
Also, I wrote on there the town clerk's telephone number, so please call her to arrange a convenient time.
Yes, you will. You will need to post notice of your meetings and to keep minutes. Those are the 2 requirements of the open meeting law. So, the town clerk's office handles posting of meeting notices. So.
And Sue, if you want, I have a copy for you of those 6, just to get you started. You guys may want to change that or add to it.
Do whatever you want.
Things like that.
So do we need to make a motion, I guess, to appoint those members? As
I would move to
Noted.
appoint all of those people to the Plastic Bag Study Committee.
Second. All in favor?
List also that I could have
Yeah,
of all the
yes.
members and phone numbers that are.
I'd suggest that you,
I will forward you, I have email addresses of everybody, which I will forward to you.
but maybe before everybody leaves tonight, you can caucus and share
Yeah, that'd be
contact
great.
information.
Excellent. So, all in favor?
Yep.
Aye. Aye. Excellent. Great. Thank you all very much.
Question, why is it ending June, this June? Why is
Because
it
we do annual.
June?
All the appointments are generally for 1 year, and they make the appointments after the town meeting, which is the end of April. So they try to make everything for June to organize a little bit after town meeting and make the appointments.
So then you get reappointed. Yeah, then you, that's right. That's very exciting. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah, we have like thousands of pages of committees that we reappoint every year.
Well, wouldn't it make sense to, at least for the 4 that will be here next year, to appoint them for till June 2015, rather than just appoint you for 2 months or 3 months, whatever?
Can we do that? Is that
So,
it?
yeah.
Sure, okay.
So
we
moved.
can do that.
Second.
All in favor?
Yep.
Aye.
Okay.
And actually, it's a nice cutoff date, because by then, the new rising seniors, to be seniors will be in there.
Good, excellent.
Rising juniors.
One thing you should be aware, by the way, is the single stream recycling program will not accept plastic bags. So that is something in terms of the transfer station you will have to deal with. So.
Okay. Well, we thank you all for volunteering your time. Thanks very much. We do appreciate
Thanks.
it. Thank you. We do have an action item tonight. We need to take a vote to designate the chairman to sign DCAM's license application for the Medfield State Hospital Advisory Committee event, the tour of the core campus at the State Hospital site on Saturday, March 8th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You can sign the 11-page license application.
This is the short form. I know, I read this. This is like the short form thing.
It is the short form.
It's like unbelievable.
It requires
supposed to be
a map of where you're going, a map of the site, a insurance certificate,
Yeah.
the hours they're going to be there, how many people are going to be there. I mean, this is.
The other two tours?
I don't think so.
No.
Nothing like that. So.
There's a change in policy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Plan a diagram of licensed premises. Yeah.
When we started doing the fireworks up there and getting permission to park on the hospital grounds, at first it was just, oh, sure.
Yeah.
And then there was, and then they wanted a certificate of insurance, and then they started,
Jeez.
I never got that form,
This is
but,
unbelievable. Oof. That's what happens when you have attorneys involved, Pete.
right,
Stuff, right?
absolutely.
It's good there's no nuclear waste going to be taken on site or something. There will probably be an 80-page application.
That's the job of the attorneys, is to point out all the problems and say no.
Excellent. Good.
Did I see something on a week from Monday at the high school or the middle school that is gonna be an information session?
Yeah. Monday, March 3rd, information session, right? As far as we know at the middle school? For?
Uh,
I'm not on that
Not,
committee.
okay.
I got the same word that it was, I have no idea, how far along the presentation
Okay,
is.
okay,
what they
all right.
have, or
So that's-
Jack is meeting
Thursday
Thursday
night.
night.
and then they'll have
We
more
have
of
a
an
better
idea.
then
Okay,
what
all
we're
right.
gonna do.
Okay, good. That sounds great. Budget reviews. Yes, Michael, you've got a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I think the Board of Selectmen, Town Administrator, Town Report, Town Meeting, and Streetlights, Evelyn and Chris are going to handle.
Let's do the town
Oh.
administrator first. I'll get
Oh.
that one for you. Let's see.
Alrighty.
So this actually currently has less than a 1% increase.
Excellent. Huh?
Yet, so far.
Before you get to mine.
So far. This actually only includes non-union personnel, and this includes step increases for those personnel that are eligible for it.
Yep.
But a cost of living increase has not been applied to any of the salary items for any of the budgets.
Okay,
But this
right.
one is predominantly salary.
So these are all the folks that are
These
pretty
are
much
current,
here.
this is, most of these people are within the town hall.
Yep.
In fact, actually, all of them are within the town hall.
Town hall.
And we don't anticipate at this point any retirements or any increase in the staffing at this point. So it was a very simple
Easy
budget this year.
To do, okay.
And we did hire, last year you had approved a new planning ZBA recording secretary.
Yep.
It's a part-time, 8-hour-a-week position, and we actually just filled that position about a week and a half ago.
I know, that's very good.
Teresa Knapp.
I'm very excited about that. That's really nice.
Great.
Good
Yeah,
call.
she's great at note-taking, so it was perfect.
Yeah, that's perfect.
So she just started last week, so
That's
she's on
really
board.
nice.
So as of right now, all any open positions that we did have within the town hall have been filled.
Good. That's really terrific. Okay.
And then you'll get the warrant committee and the personnel board usually come to terms on a general salary increase and then have a discussion with you and
Yep.
a final vote, but that has not happened yet. The
Okay.
amount that has been discussed for the general salary increase is at 2%.
Sure, okay.
I'll turn over to you. I don't have Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
In your Board of Selectmen budget, you have an increase due to the committee expenses.
This must be the biggest increase percentage-wise. I think we have the biggest increase of all the budgets.
Oh, I think I may have you beat.
We're saving that one for last.
I think, though, I thought we had ended up, after a result of all the discussion on the cultural council for the first year, we were gonna put it in the article, because we drafted an article. So I think you can delete that 4250 from this and.
Just having a separate
back
article.
and, yeah,
Okay.
Okay,
we are gonna
that's fine.
put it in.
How did that work out? Can we legally do that? I know there was, and you had some literature in here as
Town
well.
council drafted an article, and I've sent it to Jean Minio. I'll get it to you when I finally get the warrant put together. But it will not be done as a grant. It will be done as a, a contract type
Yeah.
award. They will
Okay.
have to perform a service and submit reports on what they've done
Mhm.
as far as the program, so it won't be considered a grant.
Good. Yeah, because there was someone had sent that along, or some kind
Someone
of
from
a
the
opinion
Mass
from
Cultural Council, I
as
think,
far as
yeah.
how it could be done properly, yeah.
Joy had questioned, rightfully so,
So,
under
yeah.
the anti-aid amendment.
Yeah,
and I
so
think
that was good.
And the way it was originally set up, I think it was regarded as a grant, because it was supplemental to the state budget, so wording should resolve that.
Good.
Can I just ask, the thing that stands out is the Medfield State Hospital consultant under FY 2013, there's 50,000, then it goes to zero. Do we move that somewhere else? Is that what we did?
We had a separate article for the last several years, around 75,000. Last year, when you got into the heavy environmental phase, you ran out of money, and you went for reserve fund transfer, and the best place, or the easiest place to put it, was in the selectmen's budget, because you administer the funds. So this year, we have an article in for an appropriation for the consulting services, so.
Good.
The one thing you'll need to think about, and perhaps talk to the committees, is to what the amount of that you want to appropriate. Last year, as I said, we did 75, and actually ended up appropriating with the 50,000 transfer 125.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I think it was 75 for a couple of years before that, so.
The other thing, and I know you've addressed this before, maybe there's not an answer to it, and that it looks as though the advertising goes from almost $400 up to $1,200. Are we by law required through each of the newspapers? Is there an easier way, that in a less expensive way, maybe we could do that?
There's a very easy way, but the legislature won't approve the bill. You could advertise online, and it would save a lot of money, but I'm advised by town council that any time there's legislation, I believe the representative from Franklin did file it, and the Newspaper Publishers Association jumped all over it, and it was didn't go anywhere. So you are required to publish it in a paper of local circulation,
General
2
circulation.
successful weeks,
Yeah.
successful weeks, and sometimes, depending on what type of ad it is, they can be very expensive.
They are.
Yeah,
So.
it's just the way it goes, yep. Yeah, I mean, most, yep.
But, with all the online stuff that's done today, it's silly, but it's another special interest. And when the newspaper editors are criticizing the politicians for special interest, people should be aware they're right in there too, pitching their own special interest. So.
Maybe that's something we can raise with our own state reps as well.
Yeah, you're probably not going to get anywhere, They do have the power of the pen. They may not have the power of the purse, but newspaper publishers have the power of the pen. So,
Town report budget?
Yep.
There's a small increase in this due to the new postage rates.
Sure.
Because we send out the warrant report we're required by the charter to send the warrant report out to every household.
Yep.
So there's an increase due to that.
Okay.
And there was a small increase due to the town clerk has raised the rate for poll workers at town meeting.
Mhm.
So the increase is due to that. So the increase was going from 8,000 last year to 8563 this year.
that brings up an interesting point while we're on it, too. The moderator, I know, has been in touch about whether some sort of handout should be prepared for town meeting for the special, because we're not required to send out anything for the special town meeting, only for the annual. There was a brochure mailed to each household that the committee put together, but I think he wanted some sort of procedural handout.
Yeah, I talked to Scott today, and normally when you get your warrant committee report, or your town report, town warrant report, there's a special section in there as to exactly how the proceeding goes. We're
Yeah.
anticipating a large turnout for the special town meeting, and we're also anticipating that some people who may have never been to a town meeting may come. So we are going to print up the procedures for town meeting.
Oh, okay.
Kind of condense what we have in that book so people will understand what's happening that night, because there will be, I assume, lots of speaking by multiple people. So, but I think, in talking to Scott, I think that may be something we can produce in-house.
In-house and just distribute it at the town meeting rather
At
than
the
we
town
won't do
meeting,
a
yeah,
mail.
People
we
can
won't
take
hand
if
it out.
they need
We'll,
it, yeah.
Okay.
we found even when we send the town meeting warrant home,
Sure.
we actually print extras, because most people, by the time they get out of the house and they're racing to
They
town meeting,
forget.
have forgotten it anyway, so we print up extras. So I think for this special town meeting, it'd be easier just to hand them out at the door.
Yeah.
But we'll do that in-house.
And he is going to have a meeting Thursday morning at 8 o'clock in the high school gym to go over the procedures for town meeting, as he usually does, so.
Mhm.
And if you're interested in attending,
Thank you.
more than welcome. It's not very exciting. They talk about microphones and seating arrangements and, yes.
Make sure there's the same number of chairs in each row.
I was fascinated that, yes, this time they're going to have 6 sections of all the same number of
Yeah,
seats.
Very important. Makes
Two of the
sense.
most interesting things happened over the year. One year, they forgot to put out the American flag, and when they said to do the Star Spangled Banner, there was no flag. And the other one was one year, they only had 8 chairs for the warrant committee. And one of the members, they had to get a chair as he had to sit on the
Tell them
floor of
something?
Yeah.
the platform.
Well, that's one of the hardest things that we had, right, when we did it the one year in the auditorium, right, the high school auditorium.
oh,
It's
right,
not
yes,
same, it's
yeah.
not the same number of seats in each row, really hard to count with curved rows like that, so that
Yes.
just made things even
Each row had a
worse.
different number of seats.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was,
Scott would
a horror
prefer
show.
to forget about that evening.
I think we all would.
Given the topic that came up that year, I'd refer to it as a train wreck of a town meeting. That was the trash train, remember?
Yeah.
The last one that I have to present to you tonight is the streetlight, traffic light budget, and that is level funded at $46,260.
And this is just the electric bill, right, for them? Is that, yeah, this is all it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
they don't meter traffic lights. It pays for traffic lights and street, and traffic signals.
Okay.
We have converted all of the traffic signals to LED, and that saves about 70% on your energy cost. Unfortunately, because the DPU, or whatever they call it now, Department of Energy and whatever, has not set a separate rate for LED streetlights. You would pay the same rate as you would for a sodium, high power sodium, high pressure sodium. So I've been told by Fred Davis that they are working on coming up with a separate rate, which would be to our advantage. The only other way to do it is, and I'm not sure how they do it with towns that buy their own streetlights, because they still don't meter a streetlight, so they still have to pay for some sort of a energy charge unless they have their own power plant.
Yeah.
Well, is NSTAR going to that on the streetlights, or?
They are starting to, I always ask Fred at the energy meeting, are LED lights there yet for street lighting? And he would always say, no, they're not there. Last year or so, he said, yes, they're getting quite close, and they do have some. He said, you have to be careful what you get, but it makes it, what they really need to do is have a separate rate, because obviously a street light, LED street light, uses far less energy than a regular street light. But they don't recognize that in the rate structure as of yet. So you'd be paying the same amount even if you did convert to LED lights.
There have been programs at the Mass Municipal Association annual meeting in the past at which this fellow who got the statute passed in Massachusetts that allows the cities and towns to buy their streetlights has lectured to us, and he claims that you make money by doing it, but we've always, I guess, felt that we didn't pay that much in any event, so that it's not that big a deal. Because when you buy the streetlights from the utility, you buy them at the depreciated value, so you're basically paying $1 or something for them. but then you have to manage them on your own.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any other way. I know back when I was a selectman before, when Proposition 2.5 and stuff came in, we went around and actually eliminated a lot of streetlights. So my guess is that streetlights were kept where there's considered a dangerous, heavy traveled road, or there is a dangerous intersection or curve, then the streetlights stayed, but all the other streetlights came out. So my guess is there's probably not a lot of additional streetlights we could take out without being a safety issue.
No, I think since 1981, when we took them out, I think we've only put in 2 streetlights.
Yeah.
So, to me, if there's an area to look at for regionalization that might make sense, that might be one that might make sense when LED lights become efficient. If a group of communities could get together and, you know, manage streetlights so that you don't have each town with its own repair crew
Well,
setting
that's
up
an
a truck.
interesting concept.
And I think you're going to Medway next week.
I went to Millis last night. I'll be going to Medway next
Yeah,
week.
I think Medway, I thought Mark told me that they bought their own streetlights, although I don't know why they would do that. But you might discuss that with them to see if there's any interest in a sort of looking at a regional approach in that regard.
Yeah, because you want to spread the cost of the
Spread the
truck.
cost of maintenance, yeah,
Yes, the
yeah.
truck and the personnel
There-
over a bunch of towns.
There was a scheme a few years ago, I think it was Wakefield or Reading or one of those towns up on the North Shore. They had a power company,
Yep.
and they were offering very, very low-priced maintenance contracts to repair streetlights.
Over in the surrounding towns, yeah.
Well, they were doing it all over the eastern Mass, and I think what happened, the guy who worked for the light company
Yeah.
was getting a commission, and then when the street calls started coming in that they needed to repair lights in Canton, one light in Canton and
Oh, yeah,
one light in Shrewsbury,
yeah.
and they had to send trucks to repair them. They found out it was,
Didn't quite-
yeah, and I think there was some prosecution there, if I recall.
So it's got to be Wakefield. I know Wakefield's got their own
Municipal light company, yeah, yeah. It was quite a scandal at the time. but-
Entrepreneur, that's all. It's just.
Yeah. But I think there is some potential there for
Yeah,
regionalization.
that's an excellent idea.
Yeah. Okay, we have now for the biggies, the insurance budgets.
Yeah.
I apologize for getting these to you so late, but we only got the health insurance rates in on Friday afternoon. And I know it was one that's going to be critical to this year's budget planning, so I wanted to get it done as quickly as possible, so I stayed late Friday and got it done. That budget is up, I believe it's 9.4%.
For health and life insurance, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are 2 major reasons for that. One is the rates went up 8.8%. Now, we don't have the actual rates, individual rates, but overall they're going up 8.8%, so I plugged in that increase. And the budget is based on actual enrollments as of February of 14.
Okay.
So the fiscal 14 appropriation was done on the numbers we estimated last year, so it would tie in with the appropriation. For 15, I took the latest invoice that went out and used those numbers.
Okay, yep.
In addition to that, we, and if you go to the last sheet in your budget package, you'll see we have a large number of retirees this year. This is just the school department, and the names have been removed to protect the privacy of the individuals, but it'll show you what's happening there. I believe there are 15 retirements scheduled in the school department this year. I think the police chief is anticipating they might have 2 in the police department. I don't know of any others imminent in the town departments. I think Ken Feeney did budget for 1 additional position, which might be another health insurance cost. So you've got a total of 18 possible additions if everybody's replaced or added.
Yeah.
And 1 family HMO plan cost under the new rate structure will cost almost $15,000 for the town, not total, just the town share, $15,000. So I've added another $100,000, and I hope that's enough. Because you will get some now, when people retire now, when they become 65, they must enroll in Medicare plan if they're Medicare eligible.
Yep.
And when their spouse turns 65, either before or after them, they are required to enroll in a Medicare plan.
Yep.
Unless they have dependent children, there's an exception for that.
Mhm.
So when you look at the list of retirees from school department, you'll notice some will stay under the HMO. Those are the ones who are taking early retirement and are not yet 65, so they're not eligible to go under Medicare plan. The ones who are switching from family HMOs to MedX plans,
Yep.
they are 65, so when they retire, they will be required to switch. We also will have some people who have retired prior years before they were 65, who turned 65 during the year.
So then they'll be,
They then have to switch to a Medicare plan,
yep.
and that reduces the cost to the town quite a bit. So it's kind of a guessing game as to who's going to go where.
Right.
And for example, the 15 people that are going to be hired in the school department to replace the retirees, I assume most of them or all of them will be replaced. You don't know whether they're single, whether they're family, whether they're going to take insurance. They might have it through their spouse. So the only way I could do it was throw in $100,000 and hope it's enough. There's also another little factor in there that's kind of strange. We pay the premiums a month in advance.
Yep.
So when we get to June of 2015,
Yep.
we have to pay the fiscal 16 rate for that 1 month. So I have to put an adjustment in there to project an increase for fiscal 16 as well for 1
For
month.
that 1 month.
And that came to about $24,000. So when you add the 8.8% rate increase,
Yeah.
the 100,000 for retirees and new employees, and the 24,000 for the 1 month rate adjustment, you come up with a 9.3, 9.4% increase. In my original budget planning back in November, I had estimated 8%. So for pensions and health insurance. The good news is that pensions came in about 5%, a little under 5, I think. So that will help offset this increase somewhat.
What did you
Not
anticipate? What did you guess on that, or look at that?
totally. For the pensions?
Yeah.
8%. I did all the pensions and health insurance at 8%, and pension insurances. So that will help. But in any event, there is a list of the rates, the current rates too, that are now in effect. This doesn't include the 8.8% increase, but these are what people are now paying.
Yep.
One confusing thing about this is the rates for the active employees
Yep.
changed July 1st. The rate for the MedX plans changed January 1st.
Yeah.
And that's because the federal government adjusts the MedX rates January 1st, so the insurance companies change their rates January 1st to tie in with the MedX rates. So we have to figure them a different way. On the MedX, for the first 6 months of fiscal 15, there'll be no rate increase, but then you have an increase starting January 1st. So it gets quite complicated. I dread doing that budget every year.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Sure.
I hadn't really focused on that issue of the retirements and the fact that you're picking up the health insurance for the retiree then and for the new hire, basically. So
Oh, yeah,
Sure.
that's a problem, yeah.
Do we have any incentives in place to encourage people to work until they're 65? I know the teachers got something a while ago that allowed them to retire early, I think, through the state legislature.
Teachers, police, fire, all have early retirement incentives. On the town side, we have the, it's such a nice place to work, we all stay to our 80 plan. We actually had if you remember when George DeVinancy was on it, we had the two oldest members of the Norfolk County Retirement System, not oldest, longest serving.
Yeah,
And we probably still do have the two longest serving even today.
Yeah.
When you add up Eddie Hinckley's time, and
Oh,
so. But we went around the room, and on the town side, it was incredible the number of years of service that.
And we thought
they'd
some
had.
people weren't telling the truth on some of their years of service. They were underestimating, I remember.
Probably, yeah. It was funny because we went around the whole room, and everybody was like 30 years plus. and they had just hired a new kid, and he was sitting down the back, and he was the last one they got to, and he was like 8 months.
But there's no way that we can build in an incentive to people to really stay till 65.
I'm afraid the legislature takes precedence and they control all these things. The Chapter 32B, which covers the pension system, is highly regulated by the state government.
So it's just an area where we have no real control.
No, and in fact, to give you an idea of what it's like, you recall last year there was an effort to rein in the retiree health insurance costs. There was legislation that governor filed, and when they had the public hearings on it, Gardner Auditorium was filled to overflowing, and the legislation went nowhere and still has gone nowhere. So it's a very powerful lobbying groups that try to block any changes to the pension system that would.
You remember at that meeting that we went to at the Chamber of Commerce held out at Tri-County several years ago, and Representative Linsky said it was one of the most intimidating things he'd ever seen when Gardner Auditorium was filled with officers in uniform.
Yes, yeah. I've been at those meetings, and it is intimidating. I would not want to be a legislature. And
it's a problem because, I mean, I don't know why the legislature, well, obviously the legislature bends to the interest of the people that lobby them, and so that the unions then have gotten these breaks where people are allowed to retire before 65. But just on the health insurance alone, it creates this extra bump of $15,000 per retiree for us.
Yes, it does.
It's unfortunate.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And it's worse when you get to things like the MBTA and the port authorities, and some of those, they have a couple of retirees in the MBTA that are in their 20s that are out on disability pensions. There was something reported in the paper about it. So you're going to be paying for them for potentially 50, 60 years.
Yep.
And they wonder why the T is broke all the time. I mean, this is...
Suppose they got rid of because the T used to have that 20 years of service and out, and so that the bus drivers were getting out in their 40s.
I think they went...
Corrected that.
Well, their reform, as I understand it, went from 23 years to 25 years.
Huh.
So if you were started at, say, 20 years old with a T, you could retire at 43 with a full pension. Now you'd have to work till you're 45. And on top of the pension, they also have Social Security. So when they get to 65 or 66, whatever, I guess it's 66 now, the retirement age, Social Security, they can get a Social Security pension on top of their MBTA pension. So Detroit isn't the only city that's going to be in trouble if we don't stand up and do something about these things. So.
Well, and this is our big, huge number that we're facing with this other post-employment benefits, the OPEB. I mean, ours is like 40 million or something.
And they tell us ours is one of the best they've seen. That's what the actuaries told us.
And that's what these retirements is feeding into more of that.
Yes, yeah. It's going to take a disaster to force change that's needed, and I don't know what the disaster is going to be. I think we had one in the 1930s, and we didn't learn a lesson from it. So
it was interesting to me that the governor came to that meeting at the Mass Municipal Association and lectured us basically for standing in the way of his OPEB reform, and yet apparently his OPEB reform was not sufficient to be of much use.
His OPEB reform responded to all those people in the Gardner Auditorium trying to block and change the legislation to favor them. What they did in that legislation, they postponed the implementation of the cost-saving measures for 10, 15 years.
So everybody's
the savings
through the
would,
system, maybe.
Yes, It's what they call sacrificing your young. They say, well, anybody that starts work after next year is subject to the new rules, and anybody that's been there before isn't. So, okay, the next one is workers' comp insurance, and I want to tell you before you start on this, this seems like a crazy increase in this budget, and it is. In fact, part of the reason is we if you read through the explanation here, we don't know how many credits we're going to get. We get credits from Maya, and I was going through it with Evelyn this afternoon, and a lot of the credits, we don't know what they are until June,
Yep.
after the town meeting. If we do get some more credits, and last year we got an awful lot of credits, we only spent 99,000, and out of the actual premiums, even though we budgeted 153,000. There is an audit summary that I guess Evelyn didn't have a chance to put in here, but it explains how they do the audit.
Yeah.
And the premium for the audit is actually $242,000. Excuse me, $240-some thousand. And when you apply the credits against that, it still comes up with an enormous figure. But if we get more credits as we approach town meeting, then we'll reduce the budget by those amounts. I didn't think it was fair to put them in because I'd only be guessing on what they are. But as soon as we hear. The other thing, we have had a couple of workers' comp cases this year that I can't discuss with you, but they are affecting our experience modification factor. It went from 77 for this current year to, I called this morning, got the figure, it's 90% for next year. So instead of a 23% discount, we're only going to get a 10% discount on our premiums, and that hurts. And workers' comp is a factor of payroll. The biggest factor is payroll. It's each work category has a different rate for insurance purposes.
Okay.
The highest rates being tree climbers and trash workers. They have the most injuries.
Sure.
The lowest rates being clerical and school personnel. They have very low rates. On the other hand, our tree budget and trash budgets are fairly low. Our school budget and clerical budgets tend to be fairly high, so they offset each other. And the third factor is the experience modification. They adjust your premiums based on what level of claims you've had. So I'm hoping this budget will come down. Right now it shows a 30% increase, and it's much more than that of what we actually paid for the current year.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that we can bring this down substantially if we get the information prior to town meeting.
And the number that you're budgeting is based on that audit?
It's based on taking the audit and applying the changes. We know the experience modification factor has changed. And we know we haven't got nearly as many credits for this year as we did for last year. Well, we just had to, I had to do it on the basis of what I know right now.
Yeah,
That's what
only
I know
because
right
you
now.
mentioned the tree climbers. Isn't most of our work contracted out?
They have an adjustment for contract services too.
Oh, is that right?
They come in now and they audit your 1099 forms and they make a determination. And they add a adjustment for contract service. I'll show it to you after
Wow.
in the audit, yeah.
We do
That's
have
new. They've only done that the last couple of years. And one of the things, I don't know if you've heard, there's been big arguments over people trying to put people on as contract employees as opposed contractors instead of employees.
Right.
And the IRS is cracking down on it because they lose Social Security and they lose tax money. People don't report it. The insurance industry is trying to crack down on it. So there's been a big fight going on the past few years over whether somebody's a contractor or an employee. So what they do in the workers' comp audit now, they come in and they, in addition to auditing your payroll, they audit your 1099s. So.
Well,
I know the experience can be crucial. Is at the municipal association meeting, someone was talking around the table that they had just a bad year. You know, they had a really bad accident with one employee, so that was just going to really get them on their experience factor.
And they try to smooth it out. They average it over 3 years, so if it tries to spread out a little bit, it still can. And some of these cases go on for 3 years, so you're getting
this is like a real
whacked the
bad
whole
one, so
time.
they know it's going to be really expensive for the town.
we've been very lucky, but we did have a couple this year that are impacting us. So I have two more. One I'm just finishing up on. I'll have that ready for you next week. That's the property and casualty.
Okay.
That's much better. That's looking like it's going to be fairly reasonable. And the other one is the town hall, and I'm trying to get figures together on energy costs primarily is the big factor there. So,
Good.
and then we will pretty much have all the budgets done by then, and I'll be able to hope to get a budget estimate together for you for next meeting. So you'll see where we stand and how much we're going to cut or add. I've also I've had a difficult time getting the warrant together because I know Mark is in there meeting with Russ Hallisey trying to get the codification articles, the wording correct. And we had the one with the Cultural Council that had to be worked out, and we had a couple others that were kind of the library construction grant application. So, but I hope next week I'll be able to have that together.
Great.
I did put the motions together for the special town meeting, so those are all available now. So
That sounds good. So, so we got a special town meeting coming up, March 10th. Be there.
And incidentally, the committee will be coming in to meet with you next week to give you an update on their progress. So that'll be the 4th, so that'll be good timing with the town meeting special. That's Steve Nolan, that committee.
Good.
I have to specify which ones these days. There seems there's so many of them. So.
Do you know, or maybe Bill does, have we heard anything from our reps or senators as far as the water tower and the well field legislation? Is that still out there? Have we heard anything on that?
It's still out there. My understanding is that it is. They were hoping to get it through the Senate and engross it last week, and it didn't go through, and it's still pending. But they are still shooting to have it done prior to the special town meeting.
Yeah, I just think that's important. I know they wanted to let other state agencies, which I guess is a formality that they have to do,
yes,
be offered that land. But I think that was like a 2-week period, and that should have been up.
He's already done that. DCAM supposedly polled all of the state agencies back during our mediation session. So it's, for whatever reason, it's a stall tactic on somebody's part. Not our legislators, but other legislators. My understanding is that they're hoping to get it out of Ways and Means the end of this week. So
I know. I've been told that since November.
Right.
So
yeah, that's the story every week.
Yeah.
That's the latest.
I just think that's real important before town meeting to have that on the table.
Well, where do you build your water tower? That's your biggest problem.
yes.
Right now, the land, if the town does not purchase the land, then all you've got, once it gets sold, is the footprint of the water tower and the footprint of the electrical building next to it.
Right.
So, and I tried to make that clear to our legislators that we are in an emergency situation, or we won't have a place to put the water tower.
Is it the legislature or is it the administration? Do we know? A little bit of each.
There's some internal issues. My understanding.
So Pete, thanks for dropping these things off, huh? Volunteer of the Year? Excellent.
The volunteers
Nominees?
of the year have been announced. John Thompson is the volunteer of the year, and Andrea Nevins is the youth volunteer of the year.
Excellent.
Our cameraman, Wesley Drone, is one of the nominees,
Yes.
and will be honored on March 23rd at 3 o'clock. There's a reception at the center
We
to,
do.
to recognize all, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
Seven.
8, 9, 10 people were nominated.
Excellent.
Unfortunately, Andy Thompson died. Andy did learn about his having been recognized before he died, however, so that was nice.
And we do have a picture here of Wesley here. It's a little small, but the photograph's a little small, but we do recognize you, so that's good. Excellent. Excellent. Good. That's great. So I think we're done. Thank you. That's good. So be here next Tuesday.
This program was made possible through the generous support of your Medfield friends and neighbors, folks just like you. And thanks for watching.